emergency video for silver. Crash in the silver market. Silver price down 8% on Friday. Silver miners down 10 to 15%. The bad news, it's gonna get worse. The good news, this is it. This is the beginning of the end of the final leg down, the final capitulation sell-off that will give us the best buying opportunity for silver and the silver miners in this decade. We're gonna take a look at past correction phases in this bull market and in the past bull market 20 years ago to figure out what is likely gonna happen with silver now and how we need to act when the sell-off continues. Let's get into it. Really important video today. Welcome to Hot Trades of the Day, your show for swing trading ideas for the coming days, weeks, and month. Welcome to Hot Trades of the Day. My name is Daniel Wilhelmi. Let's go Knicks. Fantastic victory. We took their soul, and usually, if you follow this channel, you know I would run a big victory lap about this game. Not today. People are hurting, especially if you were long in silver, if you were leveraged in silver, which I have told you since January to reduce your leverage. People lost a lot of money. This is not the time to talk about something as unimportant as sports. So let's get right into it. Silver crashed yesterday. If you follow this channel, it can surprise you. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, as recently as the Friday video, where I told you the price action does not look good. There's no buying power. And I told you exactly what's going to happen. I told you at some point the entities that are holding up these support zones going to stop buying if there are no rebounds, and then we're going to crash. And that's exactly what happened. We broke this purple line, which I had just drawn in on Friday's video. And if you missed this video, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of these future videos, so you can stay ahead of the market. And then once we broke the support zone, the floodgates opened, we closed right at the 200 and basically at the low of the day and the week. So this is a double negative. This is very important. You close at the low or in the bottom 20% of a candle of a day, and in this case a week. That means that the price action has not reached the bottom yet. It just means you ran out of time. And that usually means there's more coming. Not all the time, not necessarily, but that's what the case is. It also, if we look at the lows from March, right here, you can see we're closing right at the lows from March. So any candle that closes lower than Friday's candle does not only break the 200-day moving average, it also marks a new low on the close in this correction phase, which again, right, all these additional points breaking the 200, new low on the close, indicate further selling pressure coming for silver. Now, could we get a short-term bounce off the 200? Yes, absolutely. But we very clearly have to say now that, let me try to draw this in. With a down move here, and again, if we break the 200, up to here, this would be then the B wave, and then the C wave is what just is developing. Now, again, do I think we're going to go back down to 50? I don't, but it's possible. But this is the scenario we're playing out yet. So, likely breakdown below the 200, and then a liquidity grab sell-off that could bring us down to the uptrend. This is important because the uptrend now is above the 50-day. As you can see here, the 50-day, I'm sorry, the $50 mark. The $50 to $55, this is the breakout area where we started this crazy run on silver in the winter in January 2026. But we also have this uptrend that goes all the way back to Liberation Day chaos. I can draw this out like this. Here we go. To Liberation Day chaos, April 2025. So, one lesson we need to learn, if you haven't learned it yet, and trust me, I learned it the most painful way ever over 20 years of experience, and in the past commodity supercycle where I had a front row seat to everything because I was active in the markets back then. Silver, gold, uranium, yeah, I was in all of these commodities, trading them, investing in them. Some things were great, some things were not so great. And the things that were not so great taught me a big lesson. And this lesson is, the market usually goes the way of the most pain possible. That's gonna bring the most pain to the maximum amount of people to push them out of the market, and then it does the exact opposite. And here is the mistake that people made. They thought the maximum pain would be a quick, vicious sell-off. Not true, because people were and are still bullish on silver and the miners. So for them, if we had completely crashed down to the 200 in January, February, they would have just bought. They would have just seen this as a buying opportunity, which, by the way, they were right. But what was the way that would cause the most amount of pain? It would be a brutal grind, lower sideways for a month. And that's exactly what happened. And now we get the final sell-off. But by now, all the retail investors that jumped into silver at $100, $110 an ounce, all the institutions that got in with trend following models, they're all capitulating now. They're throwing their hands up and saying, F this, I'm out of here. I'm done with the silver trade. This has done nothing for 5 months, and now we're breaking down. And that is exactly what we need. The sentiment of capitulation and the capitulation in the charts. So what does that look like? This is the interesting part, right? Now, we can get a short-term rebound of the 200. Absolutely, especially after a weekend where people cool down. But overall, we are going lower in silver, okay? So I don't think that we're gonna go as low as these highs right here, around 50, 54, because you have a lot of technicians that are all saying, oh, we're going to test this breakout area. So they're all going to have their buying orders. Oops. Sorry. I wanted to put it right here to show this to you. They're all going to have them right here, right? So let's do this orange. They are going to have them right here. And when most of the buying order is going to be there, that's probably not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that the market's probably going to reverse before that. So all these buyers are going to get screwed. The order is not going to get filled. And then the market is going to turn, and then they have to jump into the market and buy at a higher price. Now, let's look at history to tell us what is likely going to happen and in what way and what we can learn from this. And for me, I only care about what happened in this bull market and in the last bull market in the 2000s. I don't care about the bull markets in the 70s, for example. Why is that? Because that's a completely different world back then. Yes, you can use these historical charts to give you an idea of what the price action could look like. But remember, it's a completely different world today. We didn't have computers back then. We didn't have automated trading. We had way less investors in the market than we have today. We had way less liquidity and money in the market as we have today back then. And the fundamentals were completely different. Solar sector didn't exist in the 70s. So that doesn't really help me very much. So I only care about what happened in this bull market and in the previous bull market 20 years ago. So the last big correction in silver that we had in this bull market was in 2024. The winter 2024, the beginning of 2025, when nobody cared about silver. That was the best investment opportunity for the mining stocks, and most people missed it. So what had happened? Let's take a look at history. We had a big run-up in the silver price, where silver ran from about 17, it basically doubled from September lows to the October 2024 highs. So in about 2 years, it doubled. And remember, that might not sound like much now after what we saw in January, but 2023, 2024, 2022, different time for silver. Nobody there then was even dreaming about $100 silver or $60, $68, $70 silver where we are right now, right? So it doubled. And then we went into a correction, and I marked it red. And as you can see, first thing that we noticed, this is the high, October 2024, and we broke the high in June 2025, which then led us to the first leg of the super bull market that just ended in January. So this is an important correction. And it took us about 8 months. This here, if we want to go from exact from here to here, is about 8 months. I'm just going to move this out so you can see the chart a little better. So right now, the current correction, we're already entering month 6. That's the important thing to know. Then we had the typical waterfall sell-offs that we had that we're used to in silver. Here, got us below the 200, smaller sell-off, right? Retest of the 200, breakdown, nasty bear trap right here. Look at this. We closed lower, right, than we did here. We made a lower low, but never undercut the intraday lows, and then had a big rally up, didn't make a new high, so it's the same correction phase. Waterfall sell-off, broke the 200, and what did we get? A monster sell-off below the 200. Sorry, let me move this out. It's got moved a little bit. And what I've been telling you to pay attention to, look at the long tail that we got and then that reversal candle. And that marked the low. But even if you would have gotten in here, right? Even if you would have bought the absolute low, right? This lower close and you're like, we're going down in silver, I'm buying here. Yeah, you needed some cojones, no doubt, to sit this one out. But in the end, this was a great buying opportunity. You're very, very much in the low percentile of the absolute low. So what does that tell us? That tells us we get a sell-off below the 200, and it's a bigger move down with the 200. That is where we want to start to get in. This is what this correction from 24 to 25, which is the only one in this current bull market that resembles what we saw, tells us. Why is that? Because in this one right here, we never even got close to the 200. So this doesn't matter for us. We need to know what happens once we hit or go below the 200. So now we got to go back all the way to the last bull market. So why does all this here not matter? What happened here? Because we're in a silver bear market. Completely different sentiment, completely different mindset, doesn't matter. Here, as you can see, this is the last big bull market in silver. And let's start here. And I'm gonna move fast because I don't want to take up too much of your time for the weekend. So 2024, first big correction. We had the monster up move in silver. I remember very, very well. I was in Munich 2024, somewhere in here, it was in the spring. Jim Rogers was presenting, and that was basically the beginning of the commodity boom for the retail market, which had zero knowledge of commodities because it was all tech before that. And he was telling that him and Buffett, and I think Soros, had just gobbled up silver for like $2 to $3 an ounce. And then they sold, a lot of them sold way too early, by the way. But I remember this vividly. So same thing, intermediate high, waterfall sell-off. We fall below the 200. Again, look at this. Look at this big tail that we see right here, right? Regained it, bull trap, break below, make a new low, nasty fake out. So we gotta remember now, we have seen this twice now, right? Possibility of a fake out, but if we get in on a sell-off below the 200, history tells us that is usually a really good price to get in. That's usually somewhere in the low point of this final capitulation phase. And then you see, took a while, no doubt, for us to get back, but this was the low right here. These two dips below the 200, the first vicious sell-off, the second one where we even closed below it again, nasty bear trap again, right? But even if you got short, even if you bought right here, great buying opportunity, right? Let's say you bought this one right here, this candle. Oh, we're reversing right here. Man, that must have scared the bejesus out of you. But overall, that's a pretty good buying range. So that's the first one. Second one. This is not an intermediate high because we never went higher than this one, but it shows you the same pattern. Waterfall sell-off. Look at this monster tail. That was the buy. Yes, we dropped back below the 200 again and again, by the way. So this happens repeatedly once you violate the 200, but we never went as low as we did after the first break sell-off. But it was an intraday sell-off. So that tells us, what does that tell us? It tells us we need to have limits in the market. If we want to get in on this, we need to have some limits for some of the positions, and we want to invest step by step. That is the lesson learned here. Let's keep moving because, again, the video is getting long, but this is important information that we need to know. Then we have this monster run-up. 2005, I remember this one very, very well. 2005 to 2006, again, silver price doubled. Again, different time, doubling of silver price in, what is this, like 8 months? That was a huge deal. And then monster correction, waterfall sell-off in silver. So it always ends with a waterfall sell-off, capitulation. We just undercut the 200 here. We didn't even get a big sell-off. Why? Because the 200 and the uptrend were right next to each other. But again, violation of the 200, that was the buying opportunity here. Next one. So out of this correction, we developed this uptrend, which again is then leads us to a correction, waterfall sell-off, drop below the 200, and then here again another waterfall sell-off with a monster tail. But even if you started buying here, yeah, you were kicking yourself for this short period, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a decent buying opportunity. We're not going to hit the absolute low, right? Only liars and very lucky people do that. So, and then we have obviously this one, the bear market. I wanted to include this because I wanted to show you something. Now, this one doesn't really count. Why doesn't this count for me? Because it's a financial crisis. That's a unique, very unique situation that has happened. But even if you bought a sell-off below the 200, let's say you bought here. So you took all this pain, you bought here. But the reality is, it took you about, this is August, not even a year and you were already even. Now, again, financial crisis, right? Completely unique situation. But it does confirm again, if you believe that we're going to go higher in silver, and I believe we're going to go a lot higher, and I believe this is a great buying opportunity, then buying the break of the 200 and the following sell-off is the way to go. And then we have the last one here, 2010, before the blow-off run in the last super cycle that led to silver $50. Okay? So, same thing. Intermediate high, consolidation phase, waterfall sell-off, we break the 200, here we go. Sell-off with a long tail, you can see here, and that's the low. Now, interestingly enough, what happens afterward is it takes us quite a time, like another half year, until the consolidation is over. I do not expect this to happen, but it could. But the more important part, again, is the sell-off of the 200. That was the low point. So that gives us a very clear blueprint how we want to act now. And that is, if we believe that silver is going to go higher, then a break of the 200 and a sell-off afterwards, likely in form of a waterfall sell-off, and also likely in a massive intraday sell-off, that's probably, as history has taught us, going to start in Asia, right? And it's going to probably the low is probably going to happen in Asian trading. That will be a great buying opportunity. Should you get 100% in? No. But you want to start to get your positions ready with buying limits, lower limits in the market. So you look at silver, for example, and you could say, and I'm not saying that's what you should do, I'm not your financial advisor. Again, we're going to wrap it up for today's video. And we're going to do the same thing, by the way, about gold. So you could do something for around like 61.75, 61.80. That would be higher than this low. If you think, all right, we're going to have a waterfall sell-off, but we're not going to go undercut this low. Or you can try to scoop something up around the next tranche, maybe then 56.75. So you're ahead of this uptrend. If you think this move is going to be vicious, which is likely even because we clearly have an ABC wave down. So you have to favor a deeper sell-off coming on the C wave. And then you basically try to do the same with the mining stocks, trying to anticipate where the price of the mining stocks that you want to buy or the ETF could fall to if silver does this move. But again, this is it. This is the washout capitulation sell-off that we've been talking about for 5 months now, that all the people that were bullish on silver wanted to see happen. And now that's happening, they're all pooping in their pants. And I gotta tell you, I know exactly what's gonna happen. The vast majority of the people that all said in January and in December, if silver ever goes back down to below 60, I'm gonna buy with both hands because I believe in the silver bull market, they're not gonna buy. To be quite honest, I already know the majority of you guys watching the video not gonna buy. And then you're either gonna buy higher or you're gonna cry about it. And I know that's hurtful to say. Nobody wants to hear this, but I wanna wake you up and I wanna shake you. Because when the second leg of the waterfall sell-off happens, it's gonna scare the bejesus out of people. And we need to be prepared so we can act. And if you feel like you won't have your emotions under control, then put buying orders into the markets, into the system. You will probably not hit the low, but again, I'm not going to hit the low. Nobody hits the low. And a good indicator of you thinking about how would you behave was the January crash. What did you do when we saw this? I can tell you what I did on this Friday. I was trading silver long. And I got screwed over by the banks because I couldn't sell my silver longs that I had bought because they were not giving any fair quotes on the price action because the volatility was so high. But I got in pretty good. I got in around 76, which was not the low. Again, you're not going to hit the low, but it was pretty good for a candle like this. And then I sold on the Monday and I made some money off it. But there was a rebound of the 50-day. Man, that was like an easy 30% with a leveraged position. But anyway, if you were just sitting there in shock, didn't know what to do, or crying under the desk in the fetal position, then you know, okay, I cannot handle the pressure of a sell-off like this, and that's completely okay, right? I've seen this a million times in the market in all different sentiments of the market. The important thing is that you're honest about this to yourself. Don't have to be honest about me. I'm not your financial advisor. Who cares? And then say, I cannot handle that pressure. Let me put the orders into the market so they're in the system, so that I am taking action even though psychologically I'm in shock. That is the smart way to do it. I can do this actively because I've seen this before and I've lived through it many times, and I was in the shock, right? Many times before as well. But then at some point you start to learn. So it's going to get tough for silver. But again, it has to get tough. We knew this was going to happen. Now it's finally here. And the whole point of putting up with all this for half a year now is that you have to use this buying opportunity. Otherwise, none of this makes sense. Why did you go through 6 months of suffering if you're a silver bull and wanted to buy, but you waited out smartly, or you bought part position because the percentages changed for silver to go up, but then it didn't, right? Which had happened here when we had this run in May. That's also okay, right? But all this, for this to pay off for us big time, we need to take action when this waterfall sell-off is happening. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. We see us on Monday. Then we're going to talk about gold. Talk to you later. Have a great weekend. Let's go, Knicks.